Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm great, Rachel. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. So to start, what I love Taylor Sheridan's stories because I think he has this way of like hiding layers of character and intention behind just the kind of basic story that we're watching unfold.
Yeah.
And for you, when you are part of the more like family dynamic that is rooted in Joe's story, how do you approach a character that is kind of so separated into that section of the overall show?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, I was kind of in this side of the story, right? All
Mhm.
the family stuff. But I think what Taylor has done specifically in this show is he's really created this world of work. She's a CIA spy, but then like what happens when a spy comes home? And
Mhm.
can she talk to her spouse? And I think Taylor did an amazing job of actually flushing out Neil, my character, because that can be
Yeah.
very one dimensional. He could just be, the sounding board or whatever. But Neil has his own story and he's got his own issues with her being gone so much, taking care of the girls, and then also being a surgical oncologist and dealing with kids with cancer. I mean, that's heavy stuff that you got to come home with day to day. And I think Taylor did an incredible job of really adding those layers to this marriage. And I think it's fascinating. And it's obviously I was only in the family stuff, but watching the show, seeing how cool the QRF team, the CIA, like how awesome everybody did, and Laisla and Stephanie, it really hooked me. I gotta be honest, I love the show. I'm happy to be here. I love it.
Well, it's funny because I asked Michael this question because I was like, Michael does a lot of action stuff. So I was like, do you want to be in that action? But like, you haven't really gotten to do the action sequences like that. Is that now watching the show? Are you kind of like, well, I don't want to just be the husband that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good doctor and dad. I kind of want to be over there doing
I
that.
mean, it looks awesome. It looks so fun. And yes, of course I do. Especially when, we got the call, I got the call, that I got it. And, I was like, where are we shooting? They're like, oh, we're shooting in Baltimore, Mallorca, and Morocco. Dave, you're going to be in Baltimore. I was like, oh, and I was like, there's nothing against Baltimore. I loved it. Had a great time, but like Mallorca, Morocco. And then I was like, maybe like she FaceTimes me, but I'm there in person and I surprise her. And they shot that down pretty quick. But yeah, in fact, if we're lucky enough to get a season two at any point, I'm sure I'm going to ask if I can at least get in on some of the training, just be part of the team a little bit because it's so cool. And the Navy SEALs and all the Rangers, the Green Beret that they have teaching the actors,
Mhm.
they're incredible human beings and what they've done and the sacrifice. And it's a very cool part of the show for sure. And yes, I'm jealous.
Well, and I do though, like Neil does get to be just like, the dad trying his best while also having like very, like you said, a very serious, sad job that he doesn't really have his partner there to talk about because she's always kind of off for work. When you and Zoe are kind of building that relationship that is, so rooted in the love that they still have for each other, even though they're kind of struggling. How do you guys navigate that as characters and like working on that relationship so when we watch it we understand exactly where they are in their relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. We didn't get a ton of time to prepare, and I literally had met Zoe one time before we started shooting day one. So you're really kind of thrown into the lion's den right there, and trying to sort of understand the relationship, and you know and for me, I'm not that good of an actor, so I need to like have all of this backstory. Like, when did we meet? Did we go to school together? Did we? And those are the things you sort of talk about. And Taylor was very insightful. And one of the things that really landed, I think, as this through line of our marriage is he didn't want the audience to guess whether we're going to stay together or divorce. He's like, I'm not interested in that. Like, you guys have chosen each other. I want to see, the commitment, and, you guys both know the stakes. she's away for her country, you're away being a doctor, helping people, and there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved in that. And I think as this first season sort of went on, you do start to see some of the cracks in Neil where it can be a bit too much, right? And what part
Mhm.
of his life is going to suffer from that? But I do think that the relationship between Neil and Joe is this sort of beautiful love story of this modern day marriage, and I'm curious to see where it goes if we get a season two. If we can sort of dive in, and because there was that sort of fleeting line in the pilot where Neil says, "Are you seeing anybody?" And I think that was really interesting. That maybe they have a deal. I don't, and who initiated that conversation? Is anyone, are they scared by it? Are they into it? Or so I think that that's something that I'm really looking forward to getting more answers on if we're lucky enough to keep moving on.
Yeah, before I ask my next question, I do have to say, don't be jokey, self-deprecating. You're a great actor. I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
before I ask my next question, I'm pointing that out.
Okay, good. You
But
fell for it. All right. So I just yeah, I threw the bait out there. No, thank you.
but I do what I always find fascinating about talking to people on Taylor Sheridan shows is they all talk about how like when they get the script, that's what like they're told like this is how we're shooting it, like nothing changes. And I did a lot of theater, so it's like that is kind of a dream of an actor to have something that you can just like prepare. Was that for you a better, because you've done a lot of television, was that for you a more fun kind of approach to acting, knowing like, hey, nothing's changing, whatever I'm looking at is like what I have to work on?
Yeah, I was it's a great question. I was actually pretty nervous at first by it.
Mhm,
And because in my career, just on the TV shows, like, put a little, ad, whatever, and, not going off improving monologues, but certainly making it my own or like,
mhm,
would I say this? There's none of that in Taylor shows. I remember it was something, it was shooting Yellowstone. And I was like, would I say like, come get the beef or something like that? Like, he's like, yeah, because that's what I wrote. I was like, copy that. All right, come get that beef, whatever. So I had the previous experience of working with Taylor, and when you get somebody that talented,
mhm.
that level, you trust. And that's what I've learned, and especially with this show. I'm not here to make that change that at all. You're the guy. So it was, it took actually a pretty big load off where I didn't have to, boom, that's it, strict memorization. And you're playing tennis with the other actor. And the good news is on this show, they're all incredibly talented. Zoe's a force. I mean, she's
Yeah.
incredible in the show. And the two young ladies who play my daughters were so good, and it was so fun to work with them and watch them on a big set. And it was, it's a very, very special part and a very special show. I think. I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, same. I do think too, you have a unique, so I always am like, I love Taylor Sheridan Westerns because like Hell or High Water is one of my favorite
Oh
all-time
yeah,
movies. And then, and I love Yellowstone and 1923 and all of that. But then there's also like the Taylor Sheridan, like, I'm gonna get into the spy mindset kind of thing. And now you are in both of these genres that he kind of works in. Do you miss like having to do cowboy boot camp? Or do you like this where it's like he's a normal guy just living a life and his wife is the one that's kind of off doing these insane things?
yeah. I totally miss being a cowboy. Okay, it was very short, but man, I mean, I'm from New York. I've been on a horse like twice in my life before that, and I was like, just being in Montana. And I think that's what makes that show so incredible. Is they're not. There's no green screens, right? They're out there on the land. They're
Mhm.
all kinds of weather. We were in Utah, Montana, and obviously the show's gone on to four more seasons. But I think I really, as an actor, right, I get to enjoy learning a little about a lot of different things. And Neil, although he's the husband, he's a surgical oncologist and works at a kids hospital.
Mm.
And I got to sit down with a Dr. Russell Ward here in Texas, a friend of my sister's, and sort of pick his brain and talk to him. And what they do is incredible. And their day of work is seeing 6-year-olds that, may not make it, and
Yeah.
or may, based off of how they can help them in the surgery. And, that was fascinating to me, and sort of, really puts things in perspective about what I do, and even looking at my own children. And, I think that I've been very lucky to sort of be in both worlds and learn, I mean, I don't have a lot of bandwidth up there, so it's really fun to sort of get to do all these little new things in my life and say that cool. I was on a horse like roping cows, like, and then I've gotten to stand in on surgeries, and
Yeah.
I watched an entire liver transplant surgery, 8 hours standing there. I was like, holy shit! I don't know if I can curse, but I held
Oh,
like a rotten liver and saw like a
okay.
real liver, and I was like, whoa. I was like, first of all, the thing is huge. I was like, does that fit in there? So that's my favorite part of the job, and I'm really fortunate to sort of fall into that Taylor world, and I hope it doesn't stop.
Yeah, which for my last quick question, I did want to ask with, the hope of getting a second season and seeing these characters come back, what do you hope that Neil gets to explore in a season two?
I think I just really want to, I want personally, Dave, I want to learn more about their marriage, and, sort of, again, that those conversations, and how they do it. Because, I'm married and my wife's an actor and she's away. And I'm like, Taylor's just much smarter. So I'm like, what should I say? What would Neil say? Which means Dave should say, like what, help me out here, bro. So, I think that, and then really just exploring, sort of more of his professional life and the struggle, and maybe sort of seeing some, Neil sort of break down a little bit or fall apart, and, just be human,
Mhm.
more human, because I think it's a very tough thing. All those different avenues are just extremely tough to deal with.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I know we said this off camera, but I'm bringing my reunion love on camera so that people will go watch it and then I can maybe get answers however many years later. But it's nice to meet you now with me as an adult to
Yeah.
talk with you about your
And
life.
thank you. And thank you for watching Reunion. And thanks, everybody for watching Reunion. It was this great little cult show, and it was my first real one. And man, I just had the best time, and everybody was awesome on that show. And I feel like we and the audience all got robbed on that one.
Yeah.
I think we should have been able to finish that story.
It's one of those when everyone asks like what show got canceled, I'm like reunion. I have so many questions. Oh, I love it. But thank you so much for talking with me. I
Thank
really
you. It's very good to see you again. Thank you very much.
have a great one.
All right. Bye, Eric.
Bye.